I would like to express our story. But before I start, I just wanted to emphasize one more time that the year 2024 will be a very crucial year for defense of democracy or whole worldwide. And in this critical year, I believe the citizens from all over the world who advocate for democracy, human rights, freedoms, rule of law, secularism, and the people who are working hard towards combating this climate crisis should engage cross-border cooperation. We should come together. And I consider this KESEB's Global Democracy Champions Summit as a significant initiative, as I said before. I believe that there is a need to establish a broad alliance of democracy champions. We need to have more democracy champions worldwide, and we shall come together, we shall establish an alliance. So before I start, maybe I shall emphasize one more thing by saying that year 2023 is very, very special year for Turkey. So we, as Democrats, secularists, believe that finally we would break free from the authoritarian government and authoritarian leader after so many years. This government was eroding the values of our republic in favor of religiously conservative and non-Western policies. So we believe that finally we could really break free of this authoritarian government, but unfortunately we weren't really successful. Unfortunately, our results of our election was very disappointing, and I would like to give some hints, some inputs maybe that can serve to guide the light for the other democratic movements in other parts of the world in terms of what not to do. Maybe our lessons could give some lessons, some hints for other democratic movements, democratic candidates and parties for what should not be done, what not to do lessons. So Erdogan had control over every state institutions, including police, intelligence agencies, judiciary system, and everybody. Furthermore, he had a vast and powerful pro-government media network, and he had built over 25 years a very powerful media outlet, working totally for himself and for his coalition. Plus, with the support of the Presidency Communication Unit, and I wanted to stress this, Presidency Communication Unit, which worked very actively during this election. They managed to create a campaign climate for his favor. The election climate that they created was frightening religious, nationalist, and conservative voters. Here are few examples of our climate, what was going on during this election period. Number one, nationalism. Though we haven't really identified this, how powerful it was, nationalism really surged throughout this election period. Ruling coalition threatened to shut down Kurdish party. The opposition bloc was a coalition of various parties with different political perspective. You know, there were 6 different parties from all over the different political perspective, and Erdogan focused on the divisions within this opposition bloc, because there were lots of divisions within this opposition bloc. Erdogan managed to convince his constituency that if opposition win, they will lose all of their rights that they gained during his presidency. Plus, a series of fake videos suggested that the opposition candidates were elected. They could collaborate with Kurdish terrorists. So they show a fake videos continuously, not only through third parties, but directly by the Erdogan himself. So under this election climate, the opposition believed that no one would believe this false news and did not really undertake a special effort to counter them. They thought that nobody would believe in such a false news, but this wasn't the case. The opposition presidential candidate, Kılıçdaroğlu, ran a quite positive, inclusive campaign and assuring voters they would not touch any religious freedoms and aim to attract more voters from the opposition side. So he was focusing on not his basis, but more focusing on the Erdogan supporters. But there was one more thing which we weren't really observed or seen. There was an unnoticed wave of anti-immigrant sentiments feeding into a nationalistic narrative, nationalistic stories and nationalistic discourse. Interestingly, it was such a disappointing, in fact, to me, a broad spectrum of young voters, including Gen Z, supported this nationalistic and ultra-nationalistic bloc and candidates. So what are the lessons, really? Even, telling this story makes me really nervous. We have all disappointed. But lessons to be learned. Number one, public opinion polls are definitely less reliable. I mean, they may not be as trustworthy as once were. We can't trust them anymore. Before the election, they were showing like by 60% opposition is going to win. Even before 1 or 2 weeks of the election, they were still showing the majority of the pollsters showing that opposition is going to win by 50+%. So we can really be skeptical for the results of the opinion polls. We shall also say that state-controlled government influenced traditional media, though we thought it will not be powerful, but still have significant power and can shape the public perception. Authoritarian politicians may engage in dirty politics that we shall consider, using any means necessary to win the election. This includes spreading disinformation, creating fear among voters. So authoritarian politicians, right-wing politicians may really play dirty. False news and misinformation can have a substantial impact on election outcomes. A spread of fake news, such as the claim that Kılıçdaroğlu collaborated with terrorist organization, which is totally absurd, was effective in swaying some voters back to Erdogan. And another lesson that it's not enough, it's not sufficient to simply oppose the authoritarian leader, Erdogan. The opposition candidate must also earn the trust of the electorate. In our case, the opposition in Turkey failed to win the trust of significant portion of the voters who had previously supported the ruling party and Erdogan. So they weren't really successful to gain the trust. So these lessons highlight the complexity of electoral dynamics and the importance of not only countering disinformation, but also presenting a compelling vision and leadership qualities to the electorate. Those are my takes of our elections. I hope these lessons could be used for the next election in the 2024.